going on, guys? Welcome to the LowKick MMA Weekly Roundup. I'm your host, Ryan Galloway, here with Jordan Ellis. We're here to recap UFC 265, Lewis vs. Gane, which took place this past weekend. And I think for a lot of people, it went exactly how we expected, right? A lot of these fights ended up how we thought they'd end up. But we'll jump straight in the main event, I suppose. The main event between Derrick Lewis and Ciryl Gane ended up with Gane TKOing Derrick Lewis in round number 3. I know that I believe going into this you picked Lewis, but were you surprised to see what happened on fight night?
I can't even remember who I picked. I'm pretty sure I picked Gane, but it was one where I was on the fence because you can never write off Derrick Lewis. But in terms of Gane, it was perfect performance. It's exactly what I've been personally waiting for from him. He's been really good without really impressing me in particular. Anyway, he has cruised to a couple of decision wins where I think he could have stepped on the gas and really got his opponents out of there, but. This was just flawless performance. There was a bit of venom in his punches. He really went out and took the bull by the horns and got a big win. And in terms of passing a tough test, he really did with flying colours. So that just makes a fight with Francis Ngannou that much bigger now.
Absolutely. And look, I saw a lot of criticism for the fight in general, saying that it was kind of boring. But the thing is, it's not on Ciryl Gane to put himself in danger to entertain the crowd, right? Derrick Lewis is the one that should have been coming forward and trying to land stuff. Ciryl Gane stuck to his game plan. He sat on the outside, he picked him apart, and as soon as he smelt blood, he went for it, and he got the finish there quite easily. You look at the stats, it was 98 punches for Gane against 12 significant strikes for Derrick Lewis. I don't even know where those 12 significant strikes came from. To me, it looked like he didn't even touch him, But perfect for performance for Gane, especially going into a fight against Ngannou. He just took out such a heavy hitter. He's going to be the favourite going into that fight. I know he is on some odds books now, but I expect him to be a bigger favourite in the coming months until that fight.
Yeah, he looks flawless, doesn't he? Let's be honest. There might be a question about how insane is he, but I thought that was a fun fight. I think he absolutely did. I did a job on him. He did an absolute job on Derrick Lewis. He didn't get started, as you said. 12 punches. I'm not sure he even landed one. He really he weren't able to do anything, and that's just Ciryl Gane. It's all praise to Ciryl Gane because. Other people, the Volkovs, the Blades, they go in and they look good, but they eventually get caught, and there was just no sign of that. He was always in and out. He just looked too good, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's favourite. I still think there is a big gap between, Francis Ngannou of today and Derrick Lewis and the rest of these guys. I do think he is a very worthy heavyweight title holder, but what does happen if Ciryl Gane, takes a few punches, survives a few rounds, and the fight drags on. So very, very exciting fight. The fact that it's, hopefully we can get it in France, but I know with everything going on in the world, it does seem pretty unlikely, but big fight nonetheless. And I think it's all worked out for the UFC in the end. They've put it into an title that no one really wanted, but, it's turned out Ciryl Gane is the next big thing, and now he's got a potential unification fight on the horizon. So, brilliant performance by Gane. I won't have an official pick for that fight yet, but it's a 50-50. It's a great fight, and I can't wait.
I was literally just going to ask you who favoured that one, but that's okay. We skip past that. On the other hand, what do you think's next for Derrick Lewis? Because I think this is kind of the end of his title run. He had that one title shot against DC, came up short, had this interim title shot against Gane. He'd have to put a couple together to get a title shot again, wouldn't he?
Yeah, and he's very capable of doing it, but he's always a guy who, for me, he's not at that level. He's never really been able to dominate any type of top contender. He struggles. He struggles once he gets up there, and although he can uncork that big punch, that is the equaliser. But you've got to have a bit more, and if it doesn't work, you're gonna come unstuck. And he just looked lost in there. To be fair, he looked absolutely lost, and Gane just had way too much, and in the end he seems to be turning his back and just wanting out of the fight. The referee could have stopped it quite a way earlier as well. So I doubt we'll see Derrick Lewis back in another title shot. I really do, but he's got the punching power, where he could go out and whoever the next big contender is, we've got a load of the kids coming through at the minute. He could crack anyone with one punch, and he's got the personality. So next thing, he rolls himself into the title shot. But, ability-wise, if it's just talking on that, I don't expect him to see him back there. He's getting quite old as well. So, and that was, he got absolutely mopped in that fight. I I would have expected Francis Ngannou to make it just as easy. So he's going to struggle at this level, but it's always exciting to watch him, and I will be looking forward to his next one, whoever it's against.
So there's been a lot of talk this week about the next generation of heavyweight, and that Ciryl Gane is the up-and-coming class compared to like Ngannou, who's the champion now, and you've got Jon Jones waiting in the wings. You've got Stipe, who just lost his belt, obviously. Where do you think Gane sits in terms of skill, and how do you think his style matches up against some of those matchups? Not Ngannou, but the Jones or the Stipe or the Curtis Blades even. Do you think there's longevity for Gane if he can get past Ngannou, or do you think that it's a style matchup and there's going to be tougher challenges than Ngannou to come?
No, I think he's got everything. It's like, to be, it's hit and not get hit, and I know that's boxing saying, but especially in heavyweight MMA, the fact that he's been so successful to this, his style, he rarely takes any damage. So in terms of longevity, if he can get by Ngannou, that really does set him up. He seems to have everything. He's got good defense in the takedowns, got submissions. He really does look the real deal in the next evolution of MMA heavyweight. So, but again, getting past Francis Ngannou is no easy feat. Francis Ngannou looked, insane last time out. He looked absolutely brilliant against Miocic. He was stopping takedowns. He was doing everything right. So he's, I would say these just are evolved as each other. They're still relatively new to the sport. I know Ngannou's got the belt and Gane's got the interim title, but they're still, raw, pretty raw, and they're coming along and they're making strides every fight. So it's good to see. And when you eventually clash, it's going to be epic. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see these two, fight 2 or 3 times, because I think they're the two best heavyweights over the next few years. I think they'll prove that, and I think other people will struggle to get a look in. The Miocic's and the Jon Jones. In terms of their longevity, I don't think they do have much time left in the sport. I think Jon Jones is reluctant to fight anyway. Miocic is, he's getting up there in terms of age, so he'll want to cash out soon. So, I think these are the two guys for the future of the heavyweight division over the next 5 years. I'd expect one or both of these to dominate it.
And last thing on this fight, well, not really on this fight, on the future of the heavyweight division, if you think between Ciryl Gane and Francis Ngannou, whichever one wins, who do you think is the tougher challenge for Jon Jones? Because let's face it, that's what they're going to try and do after that fight. That's what everyone wants to see after that fight. But do you think it's a technical striker like Gane who's going to be tough for Jones, or do you think the heavy power of Francis Ngannou is going to be an issue?
I think Ngannou is the issue. I think Jon Jones has never been hit by that type of power. If he does get hit, I'm pretty sure he's going to sleep. With Gane, I think he could work his way into that fight. He may struggle at the start, in terms of the reach and things like that. But in terms of technical ability, I do really back Jon Jones to go toe-for-toe with anyone and potentially nick a decision. It would be close. But I think Ngannou against Jones, it really could be a bad night. If Jones can't get that fight to the floor, I would expect him to get knocked out, and pretty viciously. So, yeah, I think Ngannou's a tougher night for Jon Jones. Game still tough, but I think in terms of point fighting and having a kickboxing match, Jon Jones might do okay.
Okay, well, we'll move on to the co-main event then. We saw the former two-time featherweight champion, Jose Aldo, take on Pedro Munhoz for a pretty pivotal fight within the bantamweight division. I mean, both guys were top 10 going into it, and I believe Aldo will be a top 5 fighter now if he wasn't already after this win here. And let's be honest, the first round was quite competitive in my eyes. I know a lot of people saw it all for Aldo, but I thought that first round could have gone either way. I thought it was competitive, but after that, Aldo took over, and that final round and the final sequence towards the end of the fight, Aldo just like vintage himself, didn't he?
Yeah, he looked brilliant. And Jose Aldo's just so good, even, in his later career, no one's anyone outside of world championship level do not stand a chance against him. He is that good. So, Pedro Munhoz is probably just a level or two below, someone who might hold the championship. Jose Aldo is still there. He's still about. And as I was saying last time we spoke, I think him against pretty much anyone over 3 rounds, he's going to do well. He's going to be competitive. I expect him to win this fight, and he looked flawless. So I think it is the gas tank in terms of going into the 5-round fight. He might struggle. You've got to be able to drown him with pressure and things like that. And Pedro Munhoz, he was never really able to get anything off of his own. So it was Aldo just dictating the fight, and he made it look easy. He looked fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I saw a lot of talk that, wow, Aldo looks good even past his prime. But I want to question that because I don't even think that Aldo's out of his prime yet, you know, because maybe, who knows, in his best fight days when he was the champion of the WEC or whatever it was, Strikeforce, whichever one before the UFC, when he was on his big run, he might not have beaten a Volkanovski. He might not have beaten a Holloway. He might not have beaten a McGregor. So to say that he's like out of his prime, I call that to question, you know? Like, do you think he is past his prime, or do you think Aldo's still as good as he's ever been?
No, I think he's way past his prime. I think, you know, potentially the best we've seen of Jose Aldo was before the UFC. I think even at the UFC, he looked a bit laboured sometimes. He struggled with the weight. He had some brilliant moments, but he struggled a few times. So for me, the best Aldo was in WEC. I think that's when he looked his best, but it doesn't matter. He's still, he's still better than all these fighters. It doesn't matter if he's past his prime, and he's clearly not way past his prime. But I think, you know, prime Jose Aldo, he would give a lot of people, like, I think he'd beat Volkanovski. I think he'd potentially beat Holloway, and he'd give McGregor all he can handle it at featherweight as well. So I think a prime Jose Aldo is gone, but he's still brilliant. He's still absolutely brilliant and still capable of mounting a title challenge, although I don't think he'll ever get back to holding UFC gold. He's still right there, though.
And so what do you think's next for him? Obviously, TJ is probably going to sit out and recover his knee and then get the title shot starting next year, likely, against the winner of Aljamain and Jan. If Jan wins that fight and then beats Dillashaw, I don't really see them doing Aldo rematch so soon. But if Aljamain Sterling's able to win that fight against Jan and then defend against Dillashaw, do you think that there's any interest in seeing Aldo off this win here without fighting between getting a title shot?
No, I think he needs one more. I understand people are getting high on Aldo again, and obviously it was a brilliant performance and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, he's still got work to do. Pedro Munhoz, as I said, is a couple levels below. And for my money, I think Frankie Edgar beat him, you know, a few fights ago as well. So it's not necessarily the biggest win ever, despite Aldo looking brilliant, and he really did. I don't get people calling for the Dillashaw fight. You know, Dillashaw, love him or hate him, he's very, very clearly the number one contender at this point in time. So Aldo needs to go and fight someone else. The Sandhagen fight makes sense. Personally, I would like to see Aldo fight Dominic Cruz. I think that's a really fun fight, especially you know two of the old guard got squaring off, but still very relevant for the bantamweight division. I think Dominic Cruz would love that fight. I think the fans would love that fight too. So yeah, Sandhagen or Cruz, whatever way you want to go with it. I think it's going to be either one of them next, and then a win against either of them could potentially push him into that conversation. You know, as you said, if it all goes Sterling's way or Dillashaw's way rather than the Yan fight again.
Yeah, and I mean, there's an odd man out here, isn't there? Rob Font's sitting there. He had that win over Garbrandt, so that's a potential matchup for Aldo or Sandhagen or whoever at the moment. But yeah, bantamweight's a lot of fun right now. We'll move on to welterweight, where we saw Michael Chiesa take on Vicente Luque, number 5 and 6 at the time of the fight. And for what it was, the 3.5 minutes of scrambling and a bit of striking, but mostly grappling on the fence and then the scrambles, Vicente Luque looked pretty dominant. I know he had his back taken at one point, but he didn't look worried. He managed to sweep the position and end up in a beautiful D'Arce choke to finish the fight. Is that how you expected this fight to go, or did you think the route to victory for Luque would have been on the feet?
He's clearly got great submissions. There's no doubt about it. I think he's a brown belt, but he definitely should be a black belt. You know, after his last two wins, you know, I think Tyron Woodley is a black belt, and he tapped him out with the same choke. So yeah, I do think Chiesa had him at one point, though. I really do. I think that choke was in it. It looked really tight a couple of times, and I think Chiesa will be kicking himself because, you know, when you're so close to victory and next thing you know you get choked out, it's a tough one to take. So. But that's a Luque. That's the story of his career. It's always, you know, he looks like on the verge of getting taken out, and then the next minute he turns the tables, and here he is, you know, a potential title contender now. So yeah, brilliant win, and it was glad, you know, one of these guys needed to, you know, step out and make a name for themselves, because they were kind of, you know, the best of the rest. You know, people were talking about Leon and Jorge and Colby and Usman. These kind of got pushed to the side, and I think Luque is very tough to push away now. and he'll get a big fight next and potentially wins that one, and he's onto a title shot, because the UFC will be desperate to put him in a title shot because he's fun. He'll, no matter what happens in that Usman fight or Kobe or whoever he fights, it will be a fun fight if Vicente Luque is in there. So, yeah, one more win. So if he faces Gilbert Burns or Leon Edwards or Jorge Masvidal or, you know, one of them top guys wins, he's cracked it. He's onto a title shot.
Well, he's not facing Gilbert Burns. We know this. They're teammates. But I'll tell you a name that you didn't mention that I think makes sense now. Maybe it didn't when he called him out after the Woodley fight, but a Nate Diaz fight for Luque would. I think that's something that Diaz might entertain. I mean, Luque's probably going to be ranked number 3 or 4 or 5 going now to the rankings, and I mean, Diaz is always looking for that title shot. So if he goes in there against a Luque, I think it's a pretty even fight too. I wouldn't count Diaz out too much in that bout. Do you have any interest in seeing that?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, I don't think it did make sense last time he called for it, but the fact that he's there now, and I think Nate Diaz coming off loss, he's got work to do. So Luque against Diaz, I can absolutely see, and again, that would be an absolute banger of a fight. So I'm sure the UFC would be keen to make it. Diaz, beating Luque potentially does put him in a title shot situation. I really do think that, and I think Luque, obviously it's a huge fight, so he'll be desperate for that one too. So yeah, really fun fight. But Luque, he's got the world at his feet right now. He's got all the options, and it's going to be very interesting to see what direction you go with him.
Yeah, and on the other hand, Michael Chiesa takes his first loss at welterweight, which will probably set him back to probably 7 or 8 there. I don't really know the rankings right now off the top of my head, but what's a fun fight you'd like to see from Michael Chiesa next?
Well, the one off the top of my head is Wonderboy. Obviously, they're both coming off losses, but they're both still in there. They're still relevant. So Wonderboy was only a few weeks ago as well. So in terms of dates, it kind of lines up. That's just off the top of my head. There's plenty going on in that division. So very excited to see what they do. And Chiesa's still right there. It was just a moment where he got caught and the fight was over that quickly. So he's still, we were still competitive with Luque. He still, dominates a lot of the fight for me in terms of the positions he was in. So I hope he's not too hard on himself. I hope he doesn't, regress after this loss. He's still there. He's still thereabouts. And yeah, Wonderboy off the top of my head would be a good fight.
Just the grappling in me wants to see him fight Damian Maia next. I think that'd be a fun one. Just like another grappler. I just want to see him go at it. But I don't think it's very likely for Chiesa. I know it sounds like a long shot. It doesn't really sound realistic given the circumstances, but I think a Jorge Masvidal fight would be like reasonable to imagine. I mean, Masvidal's coming off 2 losses now. If Diaz gets booked against Luque, he's looking for something to do. You can give him Michael Chiesa. Is that unreasonable, you think?
I don't think Masvidal's going to have any interest in that fight. He couldn't convince him to get him with Colby Covington, who's a great wrestler, and he's also got a name, and they've also got a rivalry. So Chiesa, there's nothing really in that fight for Masvidal. I don't think. I think Masvidal, he's still there or thereabouts. Pure name value. He's got to go in with Leon Edwards or Gilbert Burns or someone of that level, or potentially Nate Diaz again. So yeah, I don't expect Masvidal to entertain that fight. Of course, Chiesa would, and it does make sense on paper. But then when you take all the other considerations into it, I think it's quite unlikely.
No, you're probably right there. We'll move on. Before that, the women's strawweight rematch between Tisha Torres and Angela Hill. Had the right pick on this one, but had the wrong game plan. Did you expect to see Torres go out there and look how she did?
Yeah, this is how she's looked the last few fights. She looked absolutely fantastic. She's done this to all. I think is this 3 in a row now, or potentially 4. So she's looked fantastic the last few fights. She continues to look fantastic. She's just so fast, isn't she? And people can't keep up with it. And Angela Hill's a fast girl too, but she was just blown away by the speed. And I think at some point when Torres was coming at her, she was just weren't properly defending herself and didn't know how to get out of the way of the punches. I think in the end, I think Hill did get a foot in the fight and start to come back into it, but it was too late by that time. Torres was so far ahead in front, and excited to see her move on now, because I think how old is she? She seems to be in the prime of career. 31. She's in the prime of career, and she looks it, and I think she's ready to mount a title challenge. So very excited to see who they put her in with now.
Yeah, she looked great. I expected her to go out there and dominate in the wrestling, but she didn't even use the wrestling in this one, really. It was more of a stand-up fight, this one. And, you know, I was really impressed because I wasn't expecting much at all from the fight. And it was more entertaining than I expected. And, yeah, Torres, see what she does next. Can go towards that title, I suppose. Was she ranked maybe 10 after this? Or was she going into it? Do you know?
Let's have a look. Right, so she's 10 going into it. Above her, there's, you know, Michelle Watson would be a fun fight. There's so much going on in that division. Joanna, I don't know, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on, and there's some names for her, and she's really starting to build ahead of scenes. But I think Anja Hill is a you know, the best win of the bunch so far for her, so she can continue to press on. And I think the performances are speaking for themselves, and I think, you know, the UFC are taking notes, and they'll put her in a big fight next. You know, the Michelle Watson fight would be a good one. I'm not sure if they fought before, but off the top of my head, that would be the best fight for her.
All right, and opening the main card, we had Song Yadong versus Casey Kenny. Another fun fight, another high-paced fight, this one. But Yadong got his hand raised at the end, which I thought was the right decision. I didn't think there was any controversy in that. Predominant performance for Song in this fight.
Yeah, it was great to see him bounce back because, you know, we were speaking the other day and I was saying, you know, 23, he seems, you know, he seems like he's not developing right. He's a bit out of his depth now in at this level. And Casey Kenny's looked brilliant lately, but Song Yadong shut me up, and he looked fantastic. He really did, and he was on the back foot. He was showing new things. He weren't just hunting for the power. He really dictated the fight even on the back foot, and it was a very clear win. I really didn't understand why Casey Kenny was, you know, celebrating and then so pissed off afterwards. Very clear win for Song Yadong, and a really good win, you know, to put him back in that mix. And you know, he's probably on the cusp of a ranking now again in the division. And as we say, 23 years old, so he's so exciting as a prospect. There's so much work to be done, but, you know, I think Dana White was saying post-fight, you know, when this kid's 27, imagine how good he's going to be. You know, he's got potential champion written all over him, and a win like that over a tough guy, in Casey Kenny, who I think is a brilliant fighter. It was a perfect night for Song Yadong. Brilliant performance.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I thought that even his last fights, his real weakness that he showed was the grappling department when he got taken down and just dominated. So I thought that would be Kenny's game plan going into it, trying to get him to the mats, but didn't seem to be what he was interested in. More happy to stand there and trade with him, which for Yadong was the right way to go, and he ended up getting the win. So keen to see what he does next. I don't actually know where. I don't think he was ranked going in this off the top of my head, but I think a rematch with Cheeto at 135 makes sense in my opinion. Is there any fights you'd like to see for Yadong next?
I think the Cheeto one is maybe a little bit further away. I think Cheeto is moving up the division, and I want to see him move up, you know, rather than backwards. Mm-hmm. So not yet for that one. I think for Song Yadong, he is, you know, as we say, 23 years old. You can take your time with him. I mention the same guys all the time when we're speaking about these outside the rankings bantamweights. You know, you've got your Nathaniel Woods, who I think we're due to speak to later this week. You've got, you know, your Jack Shaws. These are all the English guys I'm speaking about. David Grant, who's right there. You know, there's plenty going on. Thomas Almeida is still relevant. So I think, you know, there's no rush to push Yadong into a fight. He might struggle with, let him develop, let him, you know, do all these things. But I know that's not the UFC's way. But luckily, he didn't look, you know, sensational in terms of getting a big knockout, you know, really stealing the show. He just had a really good performance, and it was good to see.
Yeah, for sure. So that wraps up the main card. Onto the prelims now. I'll just pick one out because you know which one it's going to be, and I'll throw it to you to grab what you want. But I have to speak about Bobby Green versus Raphael Fizzyev for a couple of reasons. I thought Fizzyev, I think it's Fizzyev, not Fizzyev, I think it's Fizzyev. Fizzyev looked really good, like sensational those first two rounds. Bobby Green is a durable man with really slick head movement and a kind of unique boxing style. And so it was fun to watch them go at it for the first two, but clearly to me, Fizzyev won both of those. The third round, however, Green managed to get back into it, and in my opinion, clearly won that third round. Yet one of the judges gave Fizzyev 30-27. Did you see it 30-27, or do you agree with me here?
I don't think it's the most controversial, you know, card in the world. You know, as long as the right person wins, I'm pretty happy. We can move on from that. I don't think Bobby Green, you know, had a big 10-8 round and he's somehow been screwed out of a round. It was close, competitive the whole way through, but I did think the commentators were getting, you know, a bit too hyped on Bobby Green. He was celebrating a dodge he might do, but then he's eating a leg kick and a punch at the same time. So, sometimes you've got to watch for that. But I think Fizzyev was a very clear winner, but it was such a fun fight as well, and the styles really did gel. And I think Fizzyev was just content to stand and bang with Bobby Green and allow them into the fight. And then, as you said, I do think he won the last round, but by that point, it was very clear that Fizzyev had done enough to already bank the fight, and I think the last round was pretty close and competitive too. So, no, not the most controversial scorecard for me. And as long as the right person gets it, that's why you have 3 judges. So, when you get these split decisions, hopefully 2 of the 3 get it right. And that would be something you would worry about if Bobby Green won the fight, but he didn't. And Fizzyev looked great, and it was really fun. And he's a fun character as well.
Yeah, look, he looks fantastic, and until the late of that 3rd round, and I think he's going to address this going into his next fight, but his gas tank seemed to run out towards the end there, and he was definitely slowing down, it was evident, and, he was taking a lot of shots in that last minute. So I think going into his next fight, he'll probably pace himself more. I think he got a bit trigger happy here because he could go forward and hit Green so much that he was just going for it non-stop, which is going to be an issue if he's going to run out of energy like seemed to be happening in that end of that 3rd round. But yeah, with some small adjustments, I think he's a real problem for a lot of these guys in that division. Don't know how his takedown defense holds up, but if his takedown defense is anywhere near as good as his striking, a lot of people are in trouble.
Yeah, and I think Fizzyev could have made that fight so much easier for himself, but I think he was just having fun and just letting it all hang out. I think if he wanted to, jab Bobby Green's head off for 3 rounds, he could have done that. And we've seen him do it against, Mark DeCasey, who's a brilliant striker. Mark DeCasey didn't get a sniff, and I think that's because, he might have been aware of the danger more than he was against Bobby Green. I think against Bobby Green, he was just kind of letting it all hang out, having some fun, standing in the pocket and throwing as much as he could. And obviously he was tired towards the end, but I expect him to make the adjustments and come back and look great in the next fight. And yeah, it's time to push him on. I think time to push him towards the rankings. He is, I don't know if he's already there, but someone top between 10 and 15 for him next would be great.
Absolutely. So do you want to grab any of these prelims?
Who else have we got? Well, Alonzo Menifield against Ed Herman was a fun fight, but Alonzo got a very clear win, but he's got to be kicking himself and not finishing this fight. I think this was his first decision win ever, so he might be happy about it. But Ed Herman seemed there for the taking. His leg was busted, he could barely walk, and he was just backing up. And Alonzo, was hesitant to try and close the show, and which is weird because he's such a banger. So yeah, that was a weird one, but again, good win and one you'd expect. I think Alonzo, is the future, and Ed Herman is potentially done at this point. So that one, and then obviously Jessica Penn submits Carolina in the 1st round, which is, I think Carolina was really upset afterwards. That's 5 losses in a row, really tough one. And then we had Manuel Cap with that flying knee KO, looked fantastic. Miles Johns with a big KO as well. It was a card that really delivered. Really did deliver, top to bottom. There's lots of fun fights, standout performances. I think the UFC give like 6 performance bonuses. So I think that shows you it was a good night and a lot of people impressed.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed this card from top to bottom. No fights this coming weekend, obviously. We got a break week and then the Cannonier vs. Gaslam card. So we'll just jump onto some news now. And the first thing I see here is Edson Barboza believes he's 2 wins away from a title shot. Do you think that statement's true? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think he's there. He's there or thereabouts. James spoke to him for us last week. And so I think a win over Chikadze, then another one over someone, in the mix. Who's in the mix? Maybe a Zombie or, Holloway obviously is still there, but he might just get a title shot straight away anyway. Yeah, Rodriguez, someone along that line. He's right there. I think he's looked fantastic. Don't think there's much else to say on Barboza other than he's looked fantastic at featherweight. He looked brilliant, better than ever. And we look forward to his main event in a few weeks.
Yeah, that one's got a date now, so that'll be good to see that go down. And like you said, Holloway's like still got a fight, right? He's got a fight. I think they're booking him and Yair for December, I read, or November. They're looking to rebook that fight. So if he sets himself up with a big win here over Giga Chikadze, he could be fighting the loser of that fight, and that could be one fight away from a title. There's lots of opportunity for him to climb in 2 wins. So I tend to agree with his statement there too. Other title shot implication stuff. Stephen Thompson is still confident that he can get a welterweight title shot. How confident are you, Jordan?
No, I'm not very confident at the minute. As we were speaking before, I think Kesa might be next. And obviously there was a wrestling issue there in his last fight. And it wasn't that he was getting taken down. He wasn't able to get up. It was Gilbert Burns only had to get the one takedown per round. And that was that. So he might be done in terms of that, but you can never write him off. He is still talented, and he just didn't get going in that one. But he's late 30s now. I'm pretty sure he's 38, 39. So potentially his time as a top guy is done, and especially in this welterweight division where it is so hard to get that title shot. Even Leon Edwards, who's on the crazy streak, he can't get a title shot. So there's work to be done. But Wonderboy is very capable of doing it, and also people writing him off when he lost to Pettis, and he came back, in style too. So wouldn't write him off totally, but I think his days as a potential title contender are pretty much done.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree there. Unless he comes back and gets like a spinning wheel kick knockout of his next opponent, puts his name straight back in there. I would really still love to see him get a rematch against Masvidal, but I think coming off a loss is not likely. But if he was to get that rematch and he got a spectacular finish there, you could kind of see him working his way back towards title. But bar that, I don't think there's really a strong road to the title for Wonderboy at this stage. Last piece of news I can see here, Dana White gives up on Khabib comeback. He's abandoned all hope. Is this news to you?
It's good to good to get confirmation, but I think everyone's been pretty aware of that now. It's good that we don't just see Khabib hasn't just gone off into retirement and you never see him again or hear from him again, because then you're left to wonder and guess. But we can see what he's doing, and he's very happy with the coaching. He's took over from his dad's role, and he's doing really well with it. So I feel like he is he's quenching the thirst or appetite to fight by through his fighters, and he's doing very well with it. So I've kind of given up hope myself, and it's good to hear that Dana White has too, and Khabib can just get on and enjoy his life. So it is weird. We do think he's left a lot of money and a lot of things unanswered, but it's his decision, and it seems like the right one.
Yeah. No, I agree. And look, I don't know if you saw his appearance on the Mike Tyson podcast, the Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson, and just hearing him talk on there, you can tell he's done. He's done as a fighter. He wants to stay as a coach and keep training, obviously. But just hearing what he said, like he turned down $100 million to block Floyd Mayweather. He turned down GSP. I just think it wasn't even like an idea in his mind to come back. I think he was done the moment he left that octagon on October 24th in last year, whenever it was. But yeah, sad to see, but good for him. Went out on top,
Yeah, brilliant fighter. Obviously, as you say, some questions are left unanswered. I think, when it comes to that GOAT debate, his name will always get mentioned, but he will never, top it, because there is a lot of work that other people have done that he wasn't able to do in his time. So, but brilliant fighter, and I like seeing him in the coaching role. I think it's good that he's got that. It's cool that he's took over from his dad in terms of really coaching these fighters, and he's doing a great job. I think it's 7 or 8-0 for 2021. So I'd imagine, I feel like he's going to be in the running for Coach of the Year by the time this is done, which is just still undefeated. Brilliant fighter, brilliant coach. Looking forward to seeing seeing him stay in MMA.
Yeah, it'll be cool to see how Coach Khabib rises. So I've got one last thing I just managed to scrounge up before we wrap this up, and that's Uriah Faber wants to fight, names potential opponents, including Marlon Vera. Do you think that's a fight that interests you?
Yeah, I like that one. I think that's what I was saying. I think Marlon Vera is, he's at that point now where he needs to be taking either fights that, progress him up the rankings, or fights that, are money fights, or name value fights and things like that. So I'd love that fight. I think there is some type of rivalry there from what I've read in the story as well. So yeah, and Faber's still got a lot to give. I think he come in, he beat Ricky Simone, and then he obviously got dominated by Peter Yan, but everyone gets dominated by Peter Yan. So good matchup, and yeah, it's nice seeing all these old guys come back, and it's nice seeing Chito get a big name.
Hopefully, nothing's booked now, so let's hope we see that. But pretty much wrap us up there. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll speak to you in a couple of weeks' time, I suppose, or next week to preview the fights of the Gastelum versus Cannonier card, which is coming up on August 21st. Thanks for watching, and we'll speak to you then.
Thank you, guys.
Make sure to subscribe to the LowKick MMA YouTube channel for all the latest news, event previews, and interviews with some of the biggest stars in MMA.